The Galactic Union had existed for more than 800 years. It was a great alliance of hundreds of species, each with its own culture, technology, and history. But among them all, humanity had always been the strange one, unpredictable, emotional, and endlessly curious. They were the explorers who traveled farthest, the builders who repaired the broken, and the soldiers who stood when no one else would. They were also the ones who laughed in the darkest moments, who made friends even with their enemies, and who brought new life to every world they touched. And then, one morning they were gone. It started quietly. A few missing ships here and there. Then whole fleets vanished from patrol duty. The trade routes between Earth and the core worlds went silent. Messages sent to human colonies received no reply. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was a communication failure. Systems sometimes went dark for a while, but this was different. Within a single rotation of the galactic core, only 2 standard weeks, every human world stopped answering calls. No distress signals, no warnings, no signs of struggle, just silence, confusion. Across the stars, in the great council hall on Aurelia Prime, representatives of dozens of races gathered. The hall was a masterpiece of light and glass, a symbol of unity, but today, it felt cold. Ambassador Reen of the Thalkari Dominion, a tall, silver-scaled being with calm eyes, stood before the holo display. It showed a map of human space, hundreds of worlds now marked in gray. "This cannot be possible," said Councillor Drex of the Vaknar Republic, his metallic voice echoing. "Humans do not simply disappear. They have too much pride for that." Ambassador Reen turned slowly. "Then tell me, Councillor, and where are they?" No one answered. The silence in the room was heavy, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. From the back, a young officer approached the podium. "We've checked every relay and gate. The human systems are intact. Power is stable, defense satellites are still running, but there are no life signs. It's as if they just left." Murmurs filled the hall. Some thought it was a mass migration. Others whispered of secret experiments gone wrong. A few even believed it was a test, a human trick to see how the Union would react without them. But Ambassador Reen knew better. The humans he had known were not the kind to play games with the galaxy. Something had changed, something deep and deliberate. The empty stations, a few brave ships were sent to investigate. Reen joined one of them, the diplomatic cruiser Starfall Dawn. Their first stop was Erebus Station, once one of the busiest human trade hubs in the outer sectors. When the cruiser approached, the station's lights were still on, rotating slowly around the planet below. It looked normal from a distance, but as they docked, the truth became clear. Every corridor was empty. Cups still sat on tables in the mess hall. Tools were laid out neatly in engineering bays. A child's drawing was taped to a wall, a picture of Earth with the words, "See you soon, Daddy." But there were no people. Not one. The life support systems worked perfectly. The temperature was normal. It was as if humanity had simply stood up one day and walked away. Reen walked through the quiet halls, his footsteps echoing softly. "They left everything behind," he said quietly. "Even their memories." Commander Lisar, a feline-like officer from the Fira species, frowned. Why would they do that? They were the Union's strongest allies. They held the peace for centuries. Reen looked out the viewport at the stars. Maybe peace was not enough. The Council in panic. When the investigation teams returned, the Council faced its greatest crisis. Trade routes began to collapse without human engineers to maintain the gates. The medical fleets, mostly run by human doctors, had vanished, leaving hundreds of colonies without aid. And yet the strangest thing was that no human technology failed. Their machines kept working perfectly. Ships remained powered, defense systems stayed on standby. It was as if the humans had prepared everything before leaving. The galaxy began to argue. Some believed humanity had discovered something, perhaps a new galaxy or a secret beyond the stars. Others thought they had grown tired of the Union's endless politics. A few races even celebrated. "The humans are gone," said the Zorath ambassador. "Good riddance." They always meddled where they were not wanted, but most felt uneasy. For all their flaws, humanity had been the heart of the Union, the bridge between species that often distrusted one another. Without them, the cracks began to show, the first signs of trouble. 3 months after the disappearance, border conflicts broke out. The Kyril Syndicate, once kept in check by Terran patrols, began raiding supply convoys. The Drakal swarm demanded more territory, claiming the humans had once stolen their systems. The Galactic Union tried to respond, but its fleets were scattered and uncoordinated. Without human commanders, their strategies lacked unity. Ambassador Reen watched helplessly as old alliances fell apart. He tried to send a message to any surviving humans, but the response was always the same: signal lost. One day, as he reviewed old communication logs, something caught his eye. A transmission from a remote mining colony, recorded just before the silence began. The image was static-filled, but he could make out a human voice. Tired, but calm. "We are leaving. Do not follow us. Do not mourn. Learn." Then the message ended. The discovery on Valis Prime. Half a year later, explorers reached Valis Prime, the former location of the largest Terran embassy. The city was empty but untouched. No signs of battle, no signs of destruction. At the center stood a great marble hall, still glowing softly under artificial light. In its heart was a single steel monument, tall, simple, and engraved with human writing. Reen approached it slowly. He ran his fingers across the words. "We only leave what you forced us to become." He stood there for a long time, unsure what it meant. Were the humans angry? Disappointed? Or were they warning the galaxy of something? No one could say. The monument gave no further answers. But when Reen looked closer, he saw a faint symbol at the bottom. A white star on a black field. It wasn't the flag of Earth, it was something new. He didn't tell the Council about it, not yet. Something in his instincts told him that humanity's departure was not the end of their story. It was the beginning of something else, something the galaxy was not ready for. The quiet, before the storm years of peace, had made the galaxy forget what true fear felt like. Humans had always stood between the weak and the cruel. Now, with them gone, the stars seemed colder. Reen returned to his homeworld, but he could not rest. He kept thinking of that message. "We only leave what you forced us to become." What had they been forced to become? And why did they leave without a single shot fired, without a single farewell? Sometimes late at night, Reen would look up at the sky and wonder if the humans were watching, hidden somewhere beyond the edge of known space. And if they were, what were they waiting for? The galaxy carried on, building, trading, and fighting as it always had. But beneath it all, a quiet tension grew. Old empires began to rise again. Old hatred began to burn brighter, and somewhere far beyond the reach of any telescope, in the dark void between galaxies, engines began to hum. Silent ships drifted in the black, their hulls shining faintly under the light of distant suns. No crew, no signal, only the emblem of the white star. Humanity had departed. But their silence was not peace. It was the warning before the storm. The silence of humanity had become normal now. A full year had passed since the day they vanished, and the Galactic Union was slowly falling apart. At first, many species had believed they could continue as before. Trade routes had been reopened, council meetings resumed, and fleets were reassigned. But everything felt different without the humans. They had always been the center of connection, the ones who kept others talking when anger rose, the ones who took risks when others hesitated. Without them, the balance that had held for centuries began to collapse. Cracks in the council, in the shining city of Aurelia Prime, the council met again. The great hall still glowed with soft blue light, but now the room was filled with sharp voices and distrust. Councillor Drex of the Vakanar stood, his silver armor glinting. "We cannot keep protecting the border systems alone," he growled. "The Kyril Syndicate raids every week and no one sends help." Ambassador Sarah of the Lure replied coldly. "The Vakanar once called the humans meddlers. Now you beg for their replacements?" Drex's eyes flashed. "I am not begging. I am reminding you that they kept order. You all laughed when they left. You said we were free. Now you see the truth." The chamber filled with shouts. No one listened. No one agreed. At the back of the hall, Ambassador Reen sat quietly, watching the chaos unfold. His scales shimmered under the lights, reflecting his deep unease. He had warned them all, but few had believed him. The humans' departure wasn't an accident, it was a message. He remembered their last communication. "Do not follow us. Do not mourn, learn." But no one had learned. War at the borders beyond the peaceful core worlds. The galaxy was burning. The Zorath Empire, once forced into peace by human fleets, now expanded again. Their warships moved like shadows through unguarded sectors, taking colonies one by one. The Chiral Syndicate, a group of space raiders, returned to their old habits, stealing, enslaving, and burning outposts. The humans had once hunted them to near extinction, but now there was no one left to stop them. On the colony world of Carthas 9, once a proud human alien settlement, the people cried for help. Messages went unanswered. The Union fleet was too far away, too disorganized. By the time aid arrived, the cities were ashes. The survivors whispered one thing, that the raiders used human-built weapons, traded on the black market after their disappearance. Even gone, humanity's creations continued to shape the galaxy, for better or worse. Reen's search ambassador Reen could not rest. He spent his nights reading every human file he could access. History logs, military records, cultural archives, anything that might explain why they left. The more he read, the more he realized how different humans were. They had come from a single small world, yet they had faced extinction many times, wars, disasters, famine, and still survived. They had learned not just to fight, but to rebuild. He admired that strength, and he feared it. One night, Reen returned to the monument on Vallis Prime. It stood alone under the starlight just as before. The same words still glowed faintly. "We only leave what you forced us to become." He placed his hand on the metal surface. "What did we force you to become?" he whispered. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the ground. A hidden panel in the monument's base opened, revealing a small device, a cube made of black glass shining with a white star symbol. Reen's heart raced. He lifted it carefully. The cube activated, projecting a human figure, tall, calm, and ghostly in the light. "Ambassador Reen," the figure said, using his name. "If you are seeing this, humanity has departed. We do not abandon what we built. We only prepare for what must come." The figure paused, its eyes sad. "The Union has grown too proud, too comfortable. You believe peace is natural, but peace is only built by those willing to fight for others. We gave you time to learn that lesson. Now the stars will test you." The hologram ended. The cube went dark. Reen stood there, frozen. Humanity hadn't disappeared to escape. They had left on purpose. And they had left the galaxy a challenge. The council divided. When Reen presented his discovery to the council, the reaction was immediate. Some refused to believe it. Others accused him of fabricating the message. Counselor Drex slammed his hand against the table. "So the humans think they can test us? They think they are our teachers?" Ambassador Sarah shook her head. "Perhaps they were right. We relied on them too much. Now we must prove we can survive." Reen said nothing. He only replayed the message again, letting the hologram speak for itself. By the end, the chamber was silent. Chairman Varric, the leader of the council, finally spoke. "If what you say is true, then the humans expect us to learn unity through hardship. But look around, we are already tearing each other apart." Reen nodded. "That is exactly what they predicted." No one replied. The weight of their failure filled the room. Whispers of fear weeks later. Rumors began to spread. In the outer sectors, strange signals were detected. Brief flashes of human encryption impossible to trace. Merchant ships reported seeing ghost vessels drifting between stars. Sleek, black, and silent. One trader swore he saw an old Terran battleship passing through a nebula, its engines glowing blue but with no crew aboard. Another claimed that automated drones were repairing ancient human satellites across abandoned systems. The council dismissed these stories as myths, but the people whispered in fear. "The humans are watching," they said. "They are judging us." For Reen, the rumors brought both hope and dread. If they were true, then humanity still existed, hidden, patient, waiting. But for what? The fall of Sarn Tolsoon, the galaxy received its first true warning. The Zorath Empire invaded the planet Sarn-Tul, a neutral world known for its peaceful scholars. The Union protested, but its fleets were too slow to respond. The Zorath forces landed within hours and declared the planet theirs. For 2 weeks, transmissions from Sarn-Tul showed chaos, burning cities, captured civilians, desperate cries for help. Then suddenly, Everything went quiet. The Zorath fleet stopped responding. When Union ships finally arrived, they found the skies filled with debris. Every Zorath warship was disabled, not destroyed but carefully shut down. Their weapons melted, engines frozen, no bombs, no casualties, and just silence. At the center of the wreckage drifted a single unmanned vessel. Its hull was black, marked with the white star. A message played across all frequencies. "This is not vengeance. This is correction, learn." The message was human, the voice calm and unmistakable. The council met an emergency session. The Zorath shouted for revenge, claiming the humans had returned to attack them. The Luri demanded restraint. The smaller races begged for protection. Reen only sat in silence, his thoughts heavy. Humanity's warning had come true. Shadows of a greater plan as more incidents occurred. Pirate fleets disabled. Slave markets erased, weapon factories shut down. One truth became clear. Someone or something human was still out there, watching every world. But they weren't killing. They weren't conquering. They were correcting, ending cruelty, stopping wars before they could spread. And every time the same symbol appeared, the white star. Reen began to collect the data, mapping the locations of each event. When he finished, he saw a pattern. The disabled fleets formed a perfect spiral, centered not on Earth, but far beyond Union space, deep into the uncharted frontier. Whatever humanity was doing, it was happening there. He knew the Council would forbid any mission to that region, but he also knew that if he wanted answers, he had to go. He looked out at the stars, his reflection faint in the glass. "You left to teach us," he whispered. "Then let me be your student." The beginning of the return, Reen gathered a small crew, explorers, scientists, and a few soldiers who still respected humanity. They set course for the frontier. As their ship, the Starfall Dawn, entered deep space, Reen felt both fear and hope. Somewhere out there beyond the dark, the humans were waiting, and as the stars shimmered around them, he finally understood. Humanity hadn't vanished out of weakness or defeat. They had withdrawn to prepare for what he did not yet know. But soon the galaxy would learn that the silence of humanity was not the end. It was the calm before the storm. The Starfall Dawn glided through deep space, its silver hull shining softly against the dark. The crew moved quietly, their faces tense but determined. They were heading toward the uncharted frontier, where Ambassador Reen believed the truth about humanity's disappearance waited. It had been 2 years since the humans left. 2 long, uneasy years. Across the galaxy, the mysterious white star had appeared again and again, on disabled warships, silenced pirate bases, and destroyed weapon factories. The message was always the same. This is correction. Learn. No one had died, no cities were burned, but fleets that caused harm simply stopped working. Entire armies surrendered without a single shot fired. The galaxy was divided. Some believed it was the humans returning to punish the guilty. Others thought it was a machine intelligence using human technology. But Reen believed something deeper, that humanity was teaching the galaxy one last lesson. The empty edge of space. After weeks of travel, the Starfall Dawn reached the edge of known space. Before them stretched a vast nebula, swirling gold and black clouds lit by distant stars. "This region was always empty," said Commander Lysar, her feline eyes scanning the data. "No planets, no signals, no life." "Then why?" Reen said softly. "Do the sensors show hundreds of energy sources?" The holographic map flickered to life. Faint signatures pulsed within the nebula, thousands of them. They weren't stars. They were ships. But their transponders were silent, their markings gone. Only one symbol appeared again and again. The white star. Reen felt a chill. "The Ghost Fleet," he whispered. The first encounter, they approached carefully, shields raised. The nearest ship was enormous, nearly twice the size of a Union dreadnought. Its hull was black and smooth, reflecting no light. There were no windows, no insignias, no visible weapons. Yet the ship radiated quiet power. "Try to hail them," Reen ordered. The comm officer nodded, sending a standard greeting signal. For a moment there was only static, Then, a voice replied, calm, clear, and unmistakably human. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Terran space. State your purpose. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at the comm display. Reen stepped forward, his heart racing. This is Ambassador Reen of the Thalkari Dominion, he said carefully. We come in peace. We seek understanding. There was a long pause. Then the voice replied again. Ambassador Reen, you were one of the few who listened. Hold your course. You will not be harmed. The transmission ended. Reen turned to his crew. They know me, he whispered. They've been watching. The hidden world guided by invisible signals, the Starfall Dawn followed the ghost fleet through the nebula. The deeper they went, the stranger the readings became. Energy levels, far beyond known technology, gravity fields bending around invisible masses. Then out of the mist a planet appeared. It was unlike any world Reen had ever seen, half covered in shimmering white clouds, half glowing with the faint light of giant orbital structures. The ship descended slowly, landing in a massive docking field surrounded by hundreds of silent human vessels. The crew stepped out and looked around in awe. The air was clean, the sky bright. In the distance, towers of glass and steel rose above green fields. The place felt alive, peaceful, yet powerful. Reen realized what they were seeing. They built a new Earth, he said softly. The human envoy at the end of the landing field stood a woman in a dark uniform, waiting. Her hair was silver, her eyes calm but sharp. When she spoke, her voice carried quiet authority. Welcome, Ambassador Reen, she said. I am Captain Mara of the Terran Restoration Fleet. Reen bowed slightly. It has been a long time since we heard a human voice. Captain Mara smiled faintly. Not as long as you think. We never left, Ambassador. We simply stepped away. Reen frowned. Why? The galaxy needed you. Wars are rising again. Worlds are suffering. Her expression grew distant. Yes, because they depended too much on us. Every time conflict appeared, humanity fixed it. Every time peace broke, we rebuilt it. The Union forgot how to stand on its own. So you abandoned them? Reen asked quietly. She shook her head. No, we gave them space to grow, but we watched. And when they chose violence again, we corrected it. Reen hesitated. These corrections, they are not war? Mara's voice remained calm. We do not destroy. We disable. We stop the ones who spread chaos. No more killing, only balance. The Hall of Memory Mara led Reen through the shining city. Everywhere he looked, machines worked silently beside humans, drones repairing structures, vehicles gliding through the air, lights powered by soft energy pulses. They entered a vast hall filled with holographic displays, each one showing different worlds of the galaxy. On some screens, he saw colonies rebuilding, ships returning to peace. This is what we call the Hall of Memory, Mara said. Here, we watch the galaxy. Every system that falls into greed or war appears here, and when it does, we act. Reen looked at the images, fleets frozen in space, weapons deactivated, factories turned off. You became the galaxy's silent guardians. She nodded. Guardians only until they learn. That is our purpose now. But the Council believes you are preparing for war, Reen said. They fear you. Mara looked at him sadly. Fear is natural. They feared us even when we were helping them. But this time our strength is not for conquest. It is for protection and for teaching. Reen thought for a moment, then asked softly, And if they do not learn? She looked toward the stars through the great glass wall. Then silence will teach what words cannot. The awakening of the fleet as Reen stood in the hall. Alarm suddenly echoed through the air. Mara turned sharply, her calm expression replaced by focus. A holo map lit up, showing red lights spreading across several sectors of the galaxy. The Zorath Empire, Mara said grimly. They've begun an invasion toward the neutral colonies. Reen's eyes widened. The Council will not be ready. Their fleets are too scattered. Then they will have to watch and learn, Mara replied. Outside the hall, engines began to hum. The entire Ghost Fleet was awakening, thousands of ships rising from their silent orbit. The ground trembled as waves of energy rolled through the sky. Reen stepped closer to the window, watching in awe. As the black ships rose in formation, their white star symbols glowing. "Will you destroy them?" he asked. "No," Mara said quietly. "We will remind them." The ghosts in battle the Zorath invasion fleet entered the neutral zone with confidence. Their ships were massive, armed with plasma cannons and shielded hulls. They expected no resistance. But then, without warning, the Ghost Fleet appeared. Thousands of Terran ships emerged from hyperspace, silent, dark, and perfectly coordinated. They did not fire first. Instead, they broadcast a single message to every Zorath ship. "Withdraw and live. Advance and be corrected." The Zorath ignored the warning and opened fire. Energy beams crossed the void, but every shot was intercepted by shimmering fields. Then, the Terran ships moved. They struck with precision, disabling engines, draining power, cutting weapons apart with invisible energy beams. Within minutes, the entire Zorath armada was floating helplessly. Not one ship was destroyed, not one life lost. And then, as quickly as they came, the Ghost Fleet vanished. When the Union finally arrived hours later, all they found were drifting Zorath ships and a single message carved into the hull of a destroyed flagship. "Peace is not given. It is earned." The revelation back on the Terran world, Captain Mara looked at Reen. "You see now. We do not fight wars anymore. We prevent them before they start." Reen nodded slowly. "The galaxy will call you ghosts. But I see the truth. You never left us, Yindao. You only waited until we were ready to understand." Mara smiled gently. "And now perhaps some of you are." As the Starfall Dawn prepared to return home, Reen looked once more at the great fleet in orbit, silent, endless, waiting. He finally understood what the humans had become. Not conquerors, not saviors, but watchers. Their silence was not weakness. It was strength, the calm of those who no longer needed to prove their power. And somewhere in his heart, Reen felt hope. Maybe one day the galaxy would truly learn. Humanity had returned, not as warriors, but as shadows of peace. And their message, whispered across the stars, was clear. We do not speak, we act. And through our silence, the galaxy shall remember. The Galactic Union trembled. After the Ghost Fleet disabled the Zorath Armada without harming a single life, panic spread across the galaxy. Stories of the black human ships, silent, precise, unstoppable, traveled faster than any courier or fleet. Every race, every planet, every fleet felt the fear of the unknown. And yet the humans were nowhere to be seen. No one knew where they were hiding. No one knew how many ships were out there, or when they would act again. For Ambassador Reen, the truth weighed heavily. He had seen the fleet with his own eyes. He had spoken with Captain Mara and learned that the humans were not fighting wars. They were teaching lessons. But the galaxy did not understand this subtlety. The Council in crisis on Aurelia Prime. The Union Council convened an emergency session. The hall, usually filled with calm deliberation, was now a storm of shouting and fear. Councillor Drex slammed his fist against the table. They will not stop with the Zorath. If humans can disable an entire fleet without firing a single shot, then no world is safe. Ambassador Sarah of the Lurai interjected. Do you not see? They are not attacking. They are correcting behavior. They do not want war. They want balance. Balance? Drex shouted. They left us. They vanished without warning, and now they return like ghosts. This is not balance. This is terror. Reen stood quietly, observing the chaos. He knew that fear, not understanding, was driving the Council. Humans had never sought control. They had sought accountability, for the galaxy to remember the value of peace. A transmission from the stars, then it happened. Across every channel, in every language, every fleet and planet received the same signal. It was brief, calm, and unmistakably human. We asked for peace. You asked for power. Now you will learn balance. The message repeated once, then again, and again. Panic spread. Some fleets cut their engines and tried to hide. Others scrambled to ready their weapons. Entire colonies shut down power grids and went silent. No one knew what to expect next. The human voice was neither angry nor threatening. It was calm, even patient. But that calmness carried a weight that no race could ignore. For Ambassador Reen, the message was clear. Humanity had returned. And this time, the galaxy itself was on trial. The silent correction in the weeks that followed. The humans acted. The Zorath Empire, still licking the wounds of their disabled armada, found their fleets frozen in orbit. Weapons failed, engines stopped, and their ships drifted like leaves on a pond. The Zorath soldiers were unharmed, just immobilized. In the Outer Rim, the Kyril Syndicate's pirate fleets vanished overnight. Their stolen weapons were neutralized. Their bases became inaccessible. Not a single life was lost. But the Syndicate had no choice but to surrender and abandon their operations. Slave markets that had reopened in the absence of human oversight were quietly shut down. Entire criminal networks found themselves powerless. Automated Terran drones, previously hidden among the stars, moved in perfect precision to restore order. The galaxy realized a chilling truth. The humans were everywhere, yet invisible. They did not attack. They did not destroy. They simply corrected. Fear and reflection. In the council halls of many planets, debates raged. Are they preparing for war? One counselor asked, shaking. No, another replied. They are judging us. We must show that we can govern ourselves without them. But the lesson was harder than anyone anticipated. Entire empires, previously powerful, had no choice but to obey. The humans' reach was not measured in numbers or weapons. It was measured in intelligence, planning, and moral authority. Ambassador Reen watched as old rivals began to rethink their strategies. The Union's members started to rebuild cooperation. Trade agreements were renewed. Disputes were mediated. Slowly, the galaxy learned that strength alone was not enough. And above all, one symbol appeared on every act of correction, the white star, shining faintly against the black of space. A direct message to the Council. After months of observing the galaxy, the humans sent a second, more personal transmission. It reached the Union Council directly. The message was simple, but every word carried the weight of centuries of experience. You have grown comfortable. You have relied on us for order and peace. Now you must prove yourselves. The wars you let grow will end. The greed you permitted will end, and the cruelty you ignored will end. Do not mistake our absence for weakness. The choice is yours, rise or falter. The Council fell silent. Even the loudest voices, those demanding retaliation or revenge, were hushed. Reen felt a mixture of fear and hope. Fear because the humans' power was beyond comprehension. Hope because the message showed humanity's purpose, not punishment, but teaching. For the first time, the Council understood that humans had left not to abandon the galaxy, but to let it grow worthy of their return. The training begins in the following months. Ambassador Reen began working closely with the human-controlled drones and automated systems. These machines were sophisticated beyond imagination, capable of precise intervention across vast distances. Reen's role was to communicate with local fleets and colonies, guiding them to correct mistakes. If a pirate fleet was detected, he coordinated with Terran systems to disable ships without harm. If a neutral planet was in danger, he directed resources to prevent disasters. Slowly, the galaxy began to cooperate. Old enemies negotiated ceasefires. Colonies that once relied solely on human aid began rebuilding themselves. The humans had not returned to rule. They had returned to teach the value of responsibility. The Council learns humility for Ambassador Reen. The greatest lesson was humility. The galaxy had always seen humans as powerful, sometimes unpredictable but fundamentally fair. Now he understood a deeper truth. Humans did not rely solely on force. They relied on wisdom, patience, and foresight. Even when disabling fleets or closing factories, humans ensured no life was lost. Their actions were precise, surgical, and purposeful. Every intervention carried a lesson. That power without compassion is meaningless. Reen realized that the humans had not only returned to the galaxy, they had returned as teachers, guiding the Union to remember what it once had learned. Peace is not inherited. It is earned. A silent alliance during one secret meeting. Reen spoke to Captain Mara directly. "You could have destroyed them all," he said quietly. "Every empire, every pirate fleet, every criminal organization. You have the power." Mara's expression remained calm. "True power," she said, "is knowing when not to use it. Humanity did not survive by conquering others. We survived by helping them, and by teaching them when necessary. Now the galaxy must learn to stand on its own." Reen nodded. "And if it fails?" She looked toward the stars. "Then we will remind them. Again and again. But we will not destroy. We will guide. That is what humans do." The beginning of unity. As the months passed, the galaxy changed. Conflicts that once seemed endless were resolved. Trade routes reopened with better oversight. Colonies rebuilt themselves relying on their own people instead of human intervention. The Union, fractured as it had been, began to unite. Leaders remembered the message. Humanity's silence was not weakness. It was expectation. The humans had left to teach a lesson in patience, responsibility, and cooperation. And though the White Star remained a silent symbol in the sky, every fleet, every colony, and every council knew it carried a promise. Humanity was watching, not to punish, but to ensure the galaxy grew worthy. Reen's realization one evening, as Reen stood on the observation deck of the Starfall Dawn, he gazed at the stars and thought about the humans. They had departed in silence. They had left the galaxy to its own devices. And now they had returned, the quiet, precise, and powerful, not to conquer, but to teach. He understood, finally, that humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons, their ships, or their fleets. It was in their ability to guide without forcing, to act without killing, and to lead without ruling. The galaxy would never forget this lesson. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the humans waited silently, watching, correcting, and teaching. The galaxy had learned its first true rule of survival. Peace is not given, it is earned. And for Ambassador Reen, the journey was just beginning. The galaxy was quiet. After months of careful correction by the humans, war fleets lay disabled, pirates had vanished, and rogue empires were slowly learning to cooperate. Trade routes had reopened. Colonies were rebuilding. Peace, fragile but real, had returned. And yet, for Ambassador Reen, the silence felt heavier than ever. He stood on the observation deck of the Starfall Dawn, gazing at the stars. Faint traces of the Ghost Fleet shimmered in the distance, thousands of black ships moving silently, watching, guiding, and waiting. Humanity had returned, not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as guardians and teachers. He could feel the galaxy holding its breath. The return to Earth Captain Mara approached Reen with quiet confidence. "The galaxy has learned much, Ambassador. But there is one final step." "What step?" he asked. She pointed toward a distant planet, blue and green, familiar even in the light years away. "Earth, the place it all began. We will return home. It is time for the galaxy to see us once more. Not as shadows, but as humans." Reen nodded. "And the White Star? The Ghost Fleet? It will follow, as always. But our presence will remind the galaxy that humanity does not abandon, only guides." As the Terran ships prepared to leave the frontier, the humans emerged from hiding for the first time in years. Their vessels gleamed in the light of distant suns. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers, all humans, walked aboard the ships with calm purpose. They carried no weapons ready to fire. Their eyes held a quiet strength, a reminder of everything they had survived and learned. A message across the galaxy. Before leaving, humanity sent a final broadcast. Every world received it simultaneously. "We do not rule. We do not conquer. We only guide. The galaxy is vast, full of beauty and danger, but it is yours to protect, yours to nurture. Learn from your actions. Grow with wisdom. Peace is not given, it is earned. We will watch quietly always, and when you are ready, we will walk among you once more." The words echoed across the stars, touching every planet and colony. The humans had returned, not with threats, but with expectation and hope. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy understood. Humanity's power was not in their weapons, ships, or technology. It was in their wisdom, patience, and moral courage. The Council reformed on Aurelia Prime. The Union Council met again. This time the room was different. Voices were calmer. Arguments were measured. Leaders who had once quarreled now worked together. Ambassador Reen addressed the council. Humanity has returned not to rule but to remind us of what we are capable of. We have seen their power. We have seen their patience. And now we must prove we can govern ourselves without them. Councillor Drex, still wary, nodded slowly. We cannot hide behind the humans any longer. We must act with wisdom and justice. Ambassador Sarah smiled faintly. And we will. The humans showed us the way. Now it is our choice to follow it. For the first time, the council felt united. They had learned humility, cooperation, and respect. The very lessons humanity had intended. The new galaxy across the stars. The change was visible. Pirate fleets had dissolved, returning to peaceful lives. Warships that had once attacked colonies were repurposed for exploration and protection. Trade routes flourished, connecting distant worlds. Knowledge and culture spread as diplomats worked together, rather than in conflict. And everywhere, the White Star remained, a quiet reminder of the humans who watched from the shadows, ensuring balance without force. Reen traveled to the former sites of the Terran embassies. He saw children playing in gardens that had been rebuilt, engineers repairing ships with precision, and scholars teaching history with lessons learned from recent chaos. Humanity's absence had been a test, and the galaxy had finally begun to rise to it. A human ambassador. Then, the greatest moment came. A single human ship appeared at the edge of the core worlds, the Soul's Promise shining brighter than any other vessel. Its captain, Mara, stepped forward, her uniform simple yet commanding. When she spoke, every leader, every citizen, and every soldier listened. We have returned, she said, calm and strong. Not to rule. Not to conquer. We return to remind you of what you are capable of. The galaxy is yours to protect, yours to nurture. You have been tested, and now it is time to show what you have learned. The crowd erupted in awe and gratitude. Humans had returned not as conquerors, but as partners and guides. Reen felt a profound pride. He had witnessed the humans' silence, their return, and their careful guidance. And now the galaxy had begun to understand the meaning of their departure. Humanity never abandoned them. They had only waited for the galaxy to grow worthy of their return. Lessons learned for Ambassador Reen. The lessons were clear. Strength is not measured by the power to destroy, but by the courage to protect without harm. Leadership is not about ruling others, but inspiring them to act with justice. Peace is not a gift. It is earned through action, wisdom, and responsibility. And humanity had taught all these lessons, without a single battle, without a single death. The future begins, as the stars shone over the rebuilt galaxy. Reen walked among the humans for the first time. They were no longer distant shadows or mysterious ghosts. They were people of courage, wisdom, and heart. The same humans who had left in silence, now returned as living proof of what a species could achieve. He watched children run along the streets of Terran colonies, laughter echoing in the air. He saw scholars teaching cooperation, engineers rebuilding systems, and soldiers training to protect, not destroy. The humans had returned to show that greatness was possible, not through fear, not through violence, but through courage, wisdom, and patience. And the galaxy had begun to follow their example. A quiet reminder. Even as humans returned openly, the White Star still appeared across space, a quiet symbol, a reminder. Humanity had left lessons behind in their absence, and those lessons had shaped the galaxy's path. Reen stood beneath the night sky of Earth, looking up at the stars. Somewhere beyond the reach of telescopes, the ghost fleet still moved silently, ensuring balance, guiding from the shadows, waiting patiently, and he finally understood. The humans had not left the galaxy behind. They had left the promise of guidance, hope, and justice, the new dawn the galaxy had endured. The Union had survived. Wars were replaced by cooperation, and humanity, once absent, now returned as teachers, guides, and friends. For the first time in centuries, the stars shone not just with light, but with hope. Ambassador Reen looked around at the thriving colonies, at the peaceful fleets, at the leaders working together. He smiled. Humanity had returned in silence. Humanity had corrected the galaxy. And now, humanity had returned to walk among the stars once more. The galaxy understood the truth. The humans never abandoned them. They only waited, for the galaxy to grow worthy of their presence. And as the suns rose over countless worlds, a new era began, a new dawn, where humans and the galaxy together would face the future, stronger, wiser, and united. The story ends with a powerful HFY message. Humanity's strength is not just in technology or warfare, but in wisdom, courage, and the ability to inspire others to greatness.